attention fellow gamers, no anime beyond this point.
Look, I like anime. Anime is great. Sometimes it's not, but most of the time it's pretty good. But the world of manga is full of stories that haven't yet been adapted into anime form. For some of them, it might just be a question of time, while some might never receive one, and some may already have one, but I've just chosen to pretend that they don't for the sake of my sanity. For this video though, we're gonna stick to the ones that have never had anime adaptations. Even if it was just a one episode OVA, even if it sucked so much it made you want to tear your eyes out and run headfirst into a brick wall to forget about it, if you got an anime, you're out. Also, I'll try my best to avoid series that have anime coming right around the corner, so no Chainsaw Man, no Blue Period, and no Komi-san. I'm sorry. Lastly, I'm gonna limit it to one entry per author for variety's sake. And yes, I will start off talking about Vagabond. I'll keep it short though. I mean, it's an obvious choice, yes, but Takehiko Inoue's beautiful rendition of the life of Miyamoto Musashi is such a staple that it absolutely has to be mentioned here. Both serene beauty and terrifying violence are on display as the famous swordsman tries to carve out his way in life through following the sword. This is honestly one of those manga where I'm unsure if any animation studio could ever do it justice, as a big part of what makes this series so hauntingly gorgeous is its display of beauty in stillness. So, as it is right now, the only thing I can say is that you absolutely need to check out this manga if you haven't already. It's considered a classic for a very good reason. And speaking of modern day classics, you can't possibly talk about this topic without mentioning a Naoki Urasawa manga. There is a lot you can pick from here. I've already talked about my love for Pluto in the past. His new series Asadora is off to a really strong start in my opinion, and I'm sure you can make a strong argument for Billy Bat, though I haven't read it myself with its lack of English translation. But I want to use this opportunity to talk about the manga that first introduced me to his work several years ago, namely 20th Century Boys. What starts off as a seemingly grounded mystery involving a weird cult and a charismatic leader quickly evolves into a great, almost cartoonish conspiracy plot about world domination. It is probably Urasawa's most ambitious work, with tons of different characters, storylines and mysteries being juggled in the air at the same time, but he manages to ground it expertly by tying it all into the lovely, nostalgic depiction of the characters' childhoods, making it a love letter to both the past and the future at the same time. I'm gonna mix it up a little with this third pick, as I want to pick a manga by Inu Asano. Now, some of you may know that Goodnight Punpun is not only the first manga I ever read, but probably my favourite manga of all time. Now, I think that's a pretty good sales pitch already. Seriously, you should read Goodnight Punpun if you haven't already. So let's pick something less obvious in his newest manga, Dead Dead Demons Destruction. Okay, I know it's a silly name, but hear me out. One day, a massive spaceship suddenly appears above Tokyo, causing great destruction to buildings and killing almost 100,000 people. It's humanity's very first contact with extraterrestrial beings, and it should have been an event to shake the world to its core and change it forever. But at the start of this story, 3 years after the event, nothing has happened. The UFO is simply sitting there above Tokyo, sending out occasional scouting ships that are quickly shot down by the Japanese military, and everything seems to have almost gone back to normal. This anticlimactic outcome has left some of our characters with a feeling close to disappointment, as it has left them thinking that maybe nothing will ever be able to change the world. I love this series for being such a unique take on the alien invasion premise, and it is of course also backed by Asano's signature style of experimental storytelling and art. Another good reason to pick this one up now is that it's very close to ending, with Asano having stated that the last chapter will be released before the end of 2021, ending the series at 12 volumes. And yeah, I can tell you things are absolutely happening in the story right now, so you should definitely consider checking this one out. My next recommendation is Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. It almost feels rare to get such a pure fantasy manga as this one. The story is set in a world of magic and follows a young girl named Koko, who, after experimenting with magic she shouldn't have touched, has a terrible accident, leaving her mother turned into a stone statue. She then has to study magic under an eccentric young wizard in order to learn how to reverse the spell. I put this series on the list because it's honestly such a delight to read. The childlike wonder with which the world is explored is wonderful, and the art is gorgeously detailed. I always leave this series with a great warm feeling every time I read it. From one wholesome series to another, Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible is another entry in the popular genre of extroverted girl ruthlessly bullies socially awkward boy, but it's okay cause she's cute though. Some of you will probably think of Nagatoro when you hear this, but where Nagatoro was really walking the line of actual traumatizing bullying, this one is definitely more on the cute and wholesome side, where this girl just wants to help the boy she likes have more confidence. Yeah, this one is just pure fluffy romance without much more to it, but sometimes I'd like to read those as well. Also, this was just added to the Shonen Jump app, where you can read at least the first and newest chapters to be released. As for how you can read the rest of them, well, I'm sure you can figure something out. Speaking of Jump, Soloist in a Cage is a Jump Plus series that just ended at its third volume, and it's available to read for free on Shueisha's Manga Plus app. Seriously, I cannot understand why this series isn't more popular than it is, especially when you see artwork like this. This story takes place in a dystopian prison city where all laws have been abandoned, and follows a young girl who was born and left by her parents inside the walls, named Chloe, who manages to escape the hellish prison only to return 10 years later to free her little brother. Although I can't say that the series does anything revolutionary with its storytelling within its short runtime, I do think that it does show some really heartfelt and tender moments in its display of what makes these people keep going in a seemingly hopeless world. It's a well-told, contained story, and with this being Shiro Moriya's first major publication, I really hope we'll see more from him in the future. Historical settings are far from uncommon in the world of seinen manga, but I really think there is nothing quite like Kaoru Mori's A Bride Story out there. The thing that really sets this one apart from others of its kind, like Vinland Saga, Kingdom, or Vagabond, is its focus on the mundane, everyday life of its era. Set in Central Asia in the 1800s, A Bride Story revolves around life in different villages along the Silk Road. The author's clear love for history and culture is on full display here, as she's obviously done a lot of research to make this as accurate a depiction as possible. The incredible amount of detail she puts into drawing the clothing, architecture, and interior of the different village cultures is especially awe-inspiring. The lack of action and overarching storylines kind of make me want to call it a slice of life manga of sorts, but I still never find it boring, and I'm always drawn in by the passion and love it's made with. This series definitely deserves your attention. I know I said I was gonna avoid series with upcoming anime, but I feel like this list could use a break from all the seinen manga, and I want an excuse to talk about one of my favorite shonen series from recent years, Hell's Paradise. Also, even though this technically has an anime announced, we haven't seen anything of it yet and don't even know the studio, so I'll bend the rules a little here. Hell's Paradise is a Jump Plus title made by Yuji Kaku, a former assistant of Tatsuki Fujimoto, the creator of Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch. And I mention that because it's undeniable that Hell's Paradise shares some similarities with Fujimoto's work, like the rough and gritty art style, its haunting monster designs, and its over-the-top violence, which is juxtaposed to the very human character moments we see throughout the series. If you're looking for an awesome battle shonen and you haven't read Hell's Paradise, please give this one a go. Do I even need to talk about Spy Family? I mean, it's pretty much the most popular thing ever. I'm sure most people know about it already. Oh well, doesn't hurt. It is pretty great after all. Spy Family takes place in a fictional version of East Germany, where a man called Twilight, a master spy from the West, is tasked with infiltrating the inner circle of an influential politician. And the way he'll do this is by adopting a daughter and have her attend the same school as said politician's son. He also finds a woman who agrees to play the role of his wife, and with that the three of them start playing out their normal family lives. Except that the mother Yor is actually an assassin, and the daughter Anya is actually a mind-reading psychic, and from there, needless to say, shenanigans ensue. In addition to being one of the few comedy manga out there I find genuinely funny, Spy Family also manages to be one of the most wholesome and comfy manga series I've read recently, as all three of these weirdos gradually start to feel more at ease in each other's company, becoming more and more like a real family of weirdos. Next up is another manga that I can't believe isn't more popular than it is. Based on a novel by Yoru Sumino, the creator of I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, we have I Had That Same Dream Again. This is another short one, as in only 3 volumes, it tells a really nice heartfelt story of a young girl who tries to figure out what it means for her to be happy, seeking the guidance from various people she finds around town. It's one of those stories where it's probably best for you to just figure out what it's about by reading it yourself, but you should really give it a chance. There is something very special about Aki Hirie's Ran and the Grey World that just draws me to it. It has this very magical, eccentric feel to both its storytelling and incredible art, making it feel like a modern-day fairy tale, in much the same way as a Studio Ghibli movie. In this manga, we meet the titular character Ran, a young witch living out her everyday life. Through her natural curiosity and excitement, the series becomes a celebration of childhood innocence and joy, as Ran is met with trials, both fantastical and mundane, that help us start appreciating the smaller joys to be found in life. It isn't a series to push any boundaries in terms of storytelling or characters, but I do still find it a wonderful read that I hold very dear to my heart. For the last recommendation, I'm gonna do something I don't usually do and recommend an untranslated series, because it is a series that I've been following for a while, and it does have an official translation in the works, with the first volume planned for the end of this year, and that's Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. I mentioned earlier, when talking about Hat Atelier, how it almost feels rare to find a genuine light-hearted fantasy manga, but this series is another great example of how to do it right. It really manages to capture the feeling of being out on an adventure with a group of friends in a similar way to a good fantasy RPG. Chapter 1 kicks off with a party of adventurers returning home from a decade-long adventure after having defeated the Demon King. As they each say their goodbyes and go their separate ways, we follow the party's elven mage, Frieren, as she continues her journey in solitude. And just like that, 50 years pass by in the blink of an eye, and she, with her lifespans far surpassing that of a normal human, sees her old companions grow older and eventually die from her. And she is now met with an unfamiliar feeling of regret. Regret that she didn't spend more time with them when she had the chance. Regret that she didn't know to treasure the moment she had with them when they were still together. And that also marks the beginning of a new adventure for Frieren, in which she starts to seek out new companions to better understand herself and the delicate relationships between people. Despite its light-hearted tone, I've found this to have been a really beautiful tale of cherishing the people you have around you, and how the end of a journey can simply mark the beginning of a new one. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for more of my dumb ramblings. This has been Avantgarde, and I'll see you next time.